I think one thing we can agree on is that everybody goes through stress. And, probably since 2020, no matter where you live in this world, there's been additional stress, more stress. But even without that, there's this high level of stress that comes in pretty much for everybody, right? Now it's how you manage it. So I want to give you 5 hacks of many. And I promise if you like these, let me know in the comments below, and I will keep adding some hacks until I find new ones, right? Because I don't know that you ever run out of things. I think there's a plentiful thing in this world that if you think that things are limited, they're going to remain limited. So that being said, I want to talk to you about some hacks that you can do to manage your stress. I didn't say it's going to make it disappear, right? And I think maybe that's life stress hack number 1, okay? Is accepting that things aren't fast, right? Like you got to be careful of when you're going through that stress to say, if I have this, my stress disappears. Yes, it may limit it, but if that's object focus, right? If you're always looking at the object or you're looking at something that's going to make you less stressed, you're always going to be chasing that. Now, that's not to say that you don't incorporate things into your life to keep that stress at bay. For sure, you do, but you do it as a practice, not as a destination. So I think number 1 is wrapping your head around that, right? Because when we think of stress, all of us, right? We're always looking for a fast fix because who wants to live in stress? I mean, we all do it to some level, right? And certain levels of stress are not bad because it really kind of helps us from time to time. It's a normal part of your adrenals. It's part of how your body functions. But it's when it goes into overdrive, okay? Now, for me personally, when I have severe anxiety, it's like I'm vibrating. Like it's not just the shortness of breath and all of those regular things. I feel like I'm literally vibrating from the inside out. So when that happens, I go, oh, okay, I just got to let this ride. So you got to ride the wave, right? So don't be object focused on if I like seeking and running to find it. First and foremost, you need to be clear every single day that there will be and may possibly always be levels of stress that are always going to come up. Might be traffic, might be somebody being rude to you, there's an assortment of things. Kids aren't listening. I mean, you're not going to be able to avoid it. So you can't worry about trying to find a perfect scenario. It's about how you respond to that. So number 1 is accepting that other things themselves, yes, you can relieve yourself from that situation temporarily, but what are the tools that you're going to use? Because you may not always be able to flee from that stressful situation. So number 1 is acceptance that it is not fast and it's not this is going to fix it. It's okay, let me learn how to deal with it when I'm in it and not always flee from it. Okay. That's number 1. Number 2 is what I just said. Ride the wave, right? So this is specifically important if you're having panic or anxiety attacks, right? I used to go to the hospital once a week when I was 13, 14. And seriously, once, if not more, with an anxiety attack, because in the 70s and 80s, it's not like people were like, oh, it's a panic attack, no problem. I'd get to the hospital, they'd give me a Valium, all of a sudden I would feel better, right? And so you have to understand that what you run from will continue to chase you, whether it's anxiety, whether it's your past, what you run from will always chase you, always. Right? You can't keep ignoring the gray elephant in the room. It exists whether you put a baby in a corner or not. Okay. So what do? I know you feel like you're dying. I know you feel out of control. I know you feel like, oh my God, I'm just going to go crazy, because sometimes high levels of stress can make you start to feel like this is the day I go nuts. Seriously, it can. I know, I've lived it. But when you stop, I promise you, there is a cycle for your anxiety. Now, sometimes it's triggered in the brain, in your mind. Sometimes it's triggered in your mind, right? Sometimes it's triggered in your body. So sometimes you could have a heart palpitation and it goes, oh my gosh, and it triggers, right? Or sometimes you could be like, wow, oh my God, I just had this thought, and it triggers it, right? So there's the chicken and the egg sort of thing that happens. When that happens, your body goes, oh my God, we need to really be prepared, right? And again, sometimes it's very effective and it's important. So as it goes, what happens is you're not allowing it to fully dissipate. You're not allowing it to process. So when you're running from it, this is where, and I've had anxiety and panic attacks that have lasted for weeks, if not a month. Seriously, before I was learning a lot of this, when I was in my teen years and early 20s, it was a nightmare, or I would always anticipate it coming. So when you fight it, like I was saying, what you run from will chase you. And you have to remember that it is a wave. Anxiety, panic, stress is a wave, and it will have a peak point. Remember, every storm runs out of rain. Thank you, Maya Angelou. Every storm runs out of rain. Okay. So you got to allow, I know it feels miserable, but I promise you, you will get through it. And so you have to sit with your feelings. Okay. You have to sit in it. That brings me to number 3. Feel your feelings, not just I'm stressed because of the children. That's a cause, right? That's a symptom. I was saying to you earlier, I vibrate. I can feel the vibration. So if I feel the vibration, anxiety also presents itself for me where I feel like I can't swallow. Like I'm like, oh my God, I can't swallow. So instead of going into panic, I go, oh, okay, come back to base. Let me come back into my system. Let me come back into my body. Let me feel that vibration. Let me ride it. Let me visualize my adrenals throwing out that cortisol. And now let me watch myself visually tone that down. Okay. So I'm going to talk to you more about that in number 4, but it's to feel it. I know you want to avoid the feeling, but let's go back to what I was telling you before. What you run from will continue to chase you, right? So you got to be careful with that, because this is how, you know, that cycle. You're like, oh my God, I'm on this merry-go-round. I can't get off of it. That's why you keep running, you're overthinking it. Like all of these things are coming in at once, but you gotta sit with how you feel. I know you feel bad. I know you feel terrible, but feel it in your body. What does it feel like? Like I described it as a vibration. Like, okay, I can't swallow. Maybe my brain is racing. Maybe I got so much going on. I'm so paralyzed with like the stress that I'm like, oh my God, am I real? That's derealization and depersonalization. But like, am I real? What's going on here? That lets me know I need to feel it. I am safe, but let me feel it. Okay. That's so important, because if you're not feeling it, it's going to be extremely problematic. Number 4 is visualization, right? I don't mean visualize yourself being like, oh my God, I'm on a beach. It's great. The stress is gone. Like, I wish it was that easy. It is not. What I mean is, going back to what I was saying, I can see your adrenals. They sit above your kidneys, right? Your adrenals, all this stuff is sending all this cortisol, which we know is the stress hormone, right? Sending that out there, and it is like pumping it. We are at a full-on fire hose full of cortisol, okay? Feel it, feel the vibration in my case, and then see the adrenals running out of that. Okay, your adrenals were protecting you. Your adrenals did not know that you were not being attacked by lions. It's safe now. So watch the adrenals start to dissipate. Now, it doesn't mean your body is going to respond right away, but there's the mind-body connection, right? And when you're in the panic and you're trying to outrun it, that hose is going to keep pouring left and right. Like that's not going to, do anything for you. So as you start to see this, there's a couple things that happens. It brings you back to presence, which will be number 5. And I'll get to that in a minute. It brings you back to the present space. And it is imperative at all costs that you come back to the present space, right? But visualization gives you the tool to have power without fighting it, right? So when you see, so let's say, let me use a different example too, so you can use 1 or 2 of these, is you're on a merry-go-round. You are thinking, you are getting anxiety. It's starting to feel better. It drives up again. See yourself on a merry-go-round and it's going super fast. You're like, oh my God, I feel out of control. Well, maybe on this merry-go-round, it's like a carousel. Maybe you have some horses on there. Maybe you've got little things that are going up and down. Still be stressed, but still see it, right? And then start to visualize it slowing down a little bit. Start to look at the horse you're sitting on, or the rabbit, or whatever's on there, right? You can change it frequently. Watch that. Breathe. Okay. Just watch it. Don't let your mind go somewhere else. You're fine. You're allowing your stress to process. You're just watching it. So you got to be consistent with it, right? You got to be consistent in your practice. It's not a one and done. It's not, you're going to be like, oh my God, that was great. My adrenals are better. I got the cure of everything. It's not fast. Goes back to number 1. Okay. Extremely important. Okay. And number 5 is staying present and mindful. I have told you multiple times, it has saved my life. I am a mindful expert. In another 2 to 3 weeks, I will be at my 95,000th hour of practicing and teaching mindfulness, which is staying in your space, being where your feet are. Look at where your feet are right now. Like wherever you're watching, just look at your feet. Don't care where you are. Just look at them. Well, your feet aren't tomorrow. Your feet aren't yesterday. Your feet are here. So when you get stressed and you're visualizing the merry-go-round or whatever it is that you're visualizing, your control panel, your control room, whatever it is visualize it as you start to come down a little bit, right? Look at your feet. Where are my feet? And you can come back to your feet anytime. You can tap your fingers. I'm a counter, so I like to go 1, 2, 3, 4, deep breath. Exhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, you may have to incorporate all of those. But here's the caveat to that. You've got to be consistent. And you should practice a lot of these practices when you're not in stress mode. Because then your body doesn't know, that's why meditation is amazing. And I promise you, I have tons of videos on schedule for meditation for you. But I love it, meditation will save you too. It's not the cure-all. This is a toolbox. You have a toolbox. Okay. So when you are sitting in a space to allow yourself to be connected to your body, good, bad, or indifferent, and you allow yourself to do this when you're not in peril, your body goes, oh my God, we're doing that visualization thing. And maybe you're not super geared up. Maybe you're like, I feel like the merry-go-round's a little fast today. So you're sitting in meditation under a tree. You feel somewhat okay today. And you just see the merry-go-round. Train your brain when you're not in stress. Now, you might have to implement this while you're in stress, but it's going to be more effective by doing so when you're not in stress. So your body knows. That's why breathing doesn't always work for you at times when you're like, well, I'm doing my breathing exercises. I'm not better. Well, because you're doing it to run from something. And your body, you're not doing these breathing exercises. You want to do cleansing breaths multiple times throughout the day. So that's 5 steps to implement every single day so you can really help cope and manage with your stress.